Zoetek Medical, and we are here today to talk about the routine maintenance that can be performed on the M series Midmark or Ritter sterilizer, which would cover mostly the M9s and M11s, a very common sterilizer. We want to talk about things that the operators can do between the annual PMs that we perform for you to help prolong its life and also keep it looking and working at its peak performance. So we're going to start talking about that here. So the very first thing is daily we want to start from a cold sterilizer. You know, typically people like to do this in the morning before they start the day, but whatever works in your schedule is fine. The very first thing you want to do is clean with a damp rag, best if it's moistened with some regular old distilled water. Okay, distilled water should be used almost exclusively on sterilizers, and we'll talk more about that. Dampen a rag and clean the gasket surface, wipe it down, and also clean the sealing surface around here where the gasket will press against when the door closes. This has a tendency to build up sort of a crusty kind of material on there from the steam and the water quality. It may not be perfect, and that will cause leaks and issues with your sterilization, so you want to make sure you clean that. So once a day, give that a good wipe. After you've done that, the only other thing to do on a daily basis is if you want to clean the exterior surface, again, a damp rag. You can use a mild detergent on the external surface with a damp clean rag. Wipe it all down good, clean it up. Some people have disinfection procedures that they follow. If you have one, then I recommend it. That's a good time to do it. If you don't have one and are looking to get one, any kind of an alcohol-based disinfectant solution is probably a great thing to wipe down your whole sterilizer exterior of the sterilizer with. So that covers the daily procedure. All right, now we want to talk about the weekly maintenance that can be done on your autoclave. On this, the biggest thing here is we want to replace that water that's in your reservoir. And weekly is a great idea because every time you put an instrument into that or a pack into that, there's always a little bit of maybe residual soap or whatever in there, and it ends up staying in there and builds up in your reservoir, in the water in your reservoir. So it's always great to get that cleaned out and put fresh distilled water in. We always want to use distilled water. We never want to put anything but distilled water in our sterilizer. So to do that, of course, as you know, we're going to drain the thing. So we pull the drain tube out of the little keepers. We're going to get our little drain bucket or sink or whatever and tip this down, and the water will drain out of the reservoir. Once all the water is out, then we can set that aside and we can put this back into our clips. And we take, again, distilled water only, and we fill it through the top fill port here and bring it up until the water rises up into the green area. I recommend you stay up at the upper 3/4 section of the green, and consider that as a good level to keep your water at all times. And if you have to add water, if you use your sterilizer heavily, you have to add water throughout your week. Just keep it up at that level. So that's changing the water. Now the other thing we want to keep clean as well is our trays. So we can remove our trays. They can be wiped down with again, water or a mild detergent, but they need to be rinsed very well. If they're heavily soiled, it's recommended that you can use a non-chlorinated cleaner. The one that I would say you could use is called Barkeeper's Friend. It's sort of like a scouring powder that you can buy almost anywhere. You can put that on there and wipe it down using a cloth, and it'll take a lot of the discoloration and buildup off of your trays. And again, it has no chlorine. Chlorine on stainless steel is a bad combination. It will pit it and cause it to start, eventually it will shorten the life of your sterilizer because it will damage it over a period of time. They also recommend that you can clean the steam or the tray rack. Tray rack comes out, you kind of pull it out from the sides, And it slides out like this. And this comes off. You can wipe this all down. If you do use some kind of a cleanser or a non-chlorinated cleanser or some sort of mild soap, make sure you rinse this all really good before you put it back in. And then of course to reinsert this, it's a little tricky because there's some holes here on our tray and little tabs on our rack that go together. Once you got those in place, you just kind of slide her back in to our sterilizer. Like that. And that is the extent of your weekly maintenance. All right, so now we want to talk about our monthly maintenance, and this is a little bit more involved because if you want to keep your sterilizer running at peak performance, one of the biggest things is to keep it really clean. So there's actually a cleaning procedure that's recommended once a month, and that includes this material, comes from Midmark, called Speed Clean. So the process for doing that is I recommend that these products for cleaning any sterilizer are often acidic or basic and can be irritating to eyes and skin. So personal protective equipment is always a good idea. Gloves, safety glasses are usually are strongly recommended. So we're going to start with this from a cold chamber on the Ritter Midmark sterilizers. You can clean the trays in there while you're doing this procedure. You can load your trays in there. You will get it all ready to go. And then the first thing we want to do is we want to start with fresh distilled water. You're going to need quite a bit of distilled water. You're going to need several gallons of this. Let's repeat, about 3 gallons of distilled water to do this. So make sure you have your distilled water on hand. So the first thing we're going to do is drain it like we did during our weekly draining cycle. So we drain it out, we fill it, or we put the tube back up and we fill it back up with distilled water, fresh distilled water. We take our Speed Clean that you can purchase from Zoetek or wherever, and you take it and it has indications on the side of the side of the bottle in ounces. You want to take about 1 ounce of this and pour it in the chamber inside. Okay, pour it right down inside there. At that point, like I said, this is either a basic or acidic solution, so make sure you keep it off your skin and keep it clean. At this point, we're going to close the door and latch it, and we are going to run a pouch cycle. So we push the pouch cycle, it will select it, we hit start, it will start, it'll heat up, it'll run the cycle. We don't really want to run a dry cycle when we're doing this, so you kind of have to be paying attention to the cycle and being around. Once it finishes its sterilization cycle and it vents and goes into the dry cycle, we're going to hit the stop button to cancel the rest of the cycle. And at that point, we open the door again. Once the pressure's dropped all the way down, we're going to open the door. We're going to again drain our sterilizer's reservoir just like we did before. Pull these out, drain it, fill it again with another bottle of brand new distilled water. We don't want to be running any instruments or sterilizing any equipment or anything during this clean cycle or during the rinse cycle. So you make sure your chamber is otherwise empty other than your tray. So we refill it with fresh water, and this is a rinse cycle. So we close it again. This time we can do an unwrap cycle. We do the unwrap cycle, we run that. At the end of the unwrap cycle, we don't need to do the dry cycle again. So after it vents, you can hit the stop button just like before. The pressure should be down to 0. Open your door up, and then at that point, you take out your trays, rinse them off, wipe them down with a rag and some distilled water on a rag, wipe off any residual of the cleaner, wipe out the chamber itself. So it's often a good idea to remove the rack. So we're going to pull the rack out again, and these items can be rinsed again and wiped off with a clean cloth. And then again with some distilled water and a clean rag, wipe out the inside of the chamber all over, top, bottom, back, just to get any last residual of that cleaner out of there. We want to keep most of that out of there. At that point, again, we drain our water out of our reservoir. Okay, that's our getting rid of the rinse water. And then we're going to close it back up. And again, one more fill with distilled water. We fill it up. At that point, you're ready to put your rack back in and your trays back in and start your sterilization cycle. But it is a little bit of a process. So you drain out the first load, or first water, put your cleaner in, run a cycle, drain it, refill it with water, drain it, and refill it again. And that's the procedure for cleaning the chamber. All right. Inside the sterilizer, once you have the rack out, there are some filters in here that you can check to see, make sure they're not getting clogged up with things like often anything that might be stuck on a piece of equipment or whatever you're sterilizing. Sometimes people have labels and they get off and they can plug these things up. So down in the bottom here, there's a little like screen that fits in the hole. It's pretty obvious. It just presses down in there. We pull it out, make sure it's not clogged up with anything. If it is, clean it off. You can use a brush or whatever and some water. And then that just pops back in. And most of these, there's two of them. There's one in the bottom and then one in the back here, straight in the back too. We pull that out. Just make sure it isn't clogged up with any kind of debris. And it goes right back up into that hole in the back, right where the other one was. At that point, you can put all your trays and racks and trays back in, and that pretty much covers 90% of the sterilization. The only thing that we're going to show you is how to exercise the safety pressure relief valve. And in order to do that, we have to have the thing running and hot, and so we're going to break and get that set up, and then we're going to show you how that works. All right, so I wanted to show you the testing of the safety valve that's for this device. This manufacturer recommends this as being done as a operator maintenance to be done annually, and so I'm going to show you how this works in case you're inclined to do it yourself. But if you choose not to, Zoetek is during our regular routine PM, we can perform this function for you. So, but I'm going to show you how it works anyway. First thing you're going to do is you're going to start your sterilizer. Don't put any instruments in it because it may get you a failure. You may end up with a failure in this cycle, but we don't care because it's just a test. So we're going to start a cycle, usually an unwrapped cycle, no instruments or anything inside being sterilized. On the top, there's this lever on the top, and that's going to open the safety valve, and the purpose of that is to make sure that over a period of time it doesn't stick shut. The safety valve is a safety device that if you, for some reason, too much pressure were to be formed to be present inside the chamber, rather than a catastrophic explosion, it will vent the steam safely out the bottom of the sterilizer. So we want to just exercise it. And to do that, we're going to lift up on this handle for just a couple of seconds, and you'll have steam shooting out the bottom of the sterilizer, so don't be alarmed when that happens. So we're just going to hold it for a couple of seconds, and you have your steam coming out. You can hear it coming out. If for some reason it doesn't seal immediately, you can flip it up and down one or two more times, and it will, and it should seal up for you fine. If it doesn't, then there's an issue with that valve that would probably require service. So after that, you just hit the stop button, and that will shut your thing down. And once your pressure drops down to zero, you can open your door and continue with your normal sterilization. All right, so we've gone over the operator maintenance on our sterilizers and on our Midmark sterilizers, and the only thing left is annual PM, which Zoetek can provide for you. During an annual PM, door gaskets, filters, common failure parts are replaced as part of the PM kit. We also check for leaks internally. We check voltages. We use our calibrated instruments to verify pressure and temperature are correct, so you can be assured that you're getting a proper sterilization from your machine. So that's something that we provide, and I strongly recommend. I thank you guys. We want to be Zoetek wants to be your partner, and by you doing your routine maintenance weekly, daily, annually, or monthly, and we come in and do the routine PM once a year, we can keep your autoclave working well. I want to thank you for watching today. My name is Blaise Midnight. Thank you for coming to ZoetekMedical.com, and keep an eye out for more tech tips on other equipment. And if you ever need any assistance, feel free to reach out and contact us. We're more than happy to help you on sterilizers or any other equipment you might have with any kind of technical or operator issues. Thank you.